rise with us, please? Commissioner Rhonda Allen will lead us in our prayer and our pledge. Commissioner.
Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for the opportunity that we have to come here today and conduct the business for the people of Rutherford County. And we just ask your blessings of wisdom and discernment and guidance on every decision that we make, Lord. And we just thank you abundantly for all the blessings you bestow upon us and each of our citizens every day. It's in Christ's name we pray. Amen. Please face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Thank you. You all may be seated. Call the roll, please, Gail.
Rhonda Allen. Jim Averwater. Vogel. David Jones. Mike Cush. Craig Lynch. Chip Pinion. Charlotte P. Pettis Reed. Mike Vaught. Jeff Phillips.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Gail. We have no minutes to approve. We have several items that have been withdrawn. If you'd like to mark these off of your list, item 6B 14-1009, Estates of Lewisdown Subdivision Revisions. Item 6C 4 17-2075, Charlene Richardson property has been withdrawn. And item 6D2 17-3034, Las Casas Baptist Church expansion has been withdrawn. 6D4 17-3036, Golden Glass has been withdrawn. We also have two preliminary plans that will need to be added to our agenda, and I'll call for a suspension of the rules when we get to those. Under new business, 6A, waiver request 17-4007, Susan Cook is requesting a waiver from the fire hydrant requirements for property located at 2419 Yearwood Avenue. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and good morning, Commissioners. Hope everybody's doing well this morning. This property, as you stated, is located along Yearwood Avenue. It's just to the east of Rutherford Boulevard. The applicant's proposing to split this property into 3 separate lots. CUD has stated that a fire hydrant cannot be supported at this location. In your agenda packets on your iPads, you'll see that there is a letter from CUD to that effect. Since this is a 3-lot subdivision, residential sprinkler systems will be required should this waiver be approved for the new structures. The existing structure, however, which is on the property, will not have to be retrofitted with sprinkler systems. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I have a motion and a second to approve item 17-4007 for Susan Cook. Any other questions? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules to hear 2 preliminary plans. We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. The motion carries. These are both for reapproval, and I guess for lack of better things, we're going to label the first one 6B2 14-1011, Hall Farm Subdivision, a revised preliminary, 18 lots on 29.6 acres, zoned RL, located off McKee Road and Valley View Road. Lewis Perry is the applicant. This includes a waiver to the fire hydrant requirements. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Both of these preliminary plans that are coming up under the suspension of the rules actually have corresponding final plats that we'll consider on the next section of the agenda. The reason they're coming before you is that the final plats that were submitted vary just a little bit from the preliminaries that were approved. The number of lots are the same. It's really more of an issue of some of the lot sizes have changed. Some of them got smaller. According to our subdivision regulations, a major deviation from a preliminary plan, which includes lowering of a a lot area cannot be done administratively. It has to be reapproved by the Planning Commission. So that's really what the case is here. This is just reapproving this preliminary plan so that it's consistent with the final plan that was submitted. Just for your information, it's also consistent with the construction plans also that were submitted. Most of these changes were due to detention pond, things that had shifted around. I mean, these are not significant changes, but according to our regulations, it's something I can't do administratively. So that's really the only thing that's going on, the only change that's happening with this particular Hall Farm subdivision.
Staff has reviewed and recommends approval?
Yes, sir, we do.
Thank you.
Everything in good order?
Yes, sir.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item 14-1011, Hall Farms subdivision. This is a revised preliminary. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Any opposition? The motion to approve carries. Thank you. Item 6B3, 16-1009, Madison Cove subdivision, revised preliminary, 105 lots, 104 are buildable on 69.69 acres, zoned RM, located along Leanna Central Valley Road. Matthew Bartlett is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Once again, this is a similar situation from the last one we just looked at with Hall Farm. Again, Madison Cove, there is a corresponding final plat as well. The change on this, and Mike's got it up on the screen, is in the upper right corner of the property, kind of where he's circling. That's where the change was made. That one lot at the end of the cul-de-sac kind of went behind right there, it went behind that lot. Originally, it didn't do that. The lot below it just kind of went straight out. Again, when you reduce the size of one, it causes us to have to bring this back through. So again, with that, everything else with this is consistent. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve item 16-1009, Madison Cove subdivision, revised preliminary. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Any opposition? That motion to approve carries. Thank you. Of course, 6B1 has been withdrawn. It gets us to 6C, submitted for final plat approval. 6C1, 17-2071, Hall Farm subdivision, final plat, Section 1, Phase 2, 11 residential lots and 1 storm detention lot on 16.79 acres, zoned RL, located off Valley View Road. Robert B. Todd is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is the final plat that corresponds with the preliminary that was just reapproved just a couple of moments ago. Originally, the preliminary plan was approved back in December before tonight, December of 2014, again, prior to today's meeting. Section 1 of this plat was subdivision, was recorded back in March of 2016. They have taken care of the issue we had with the preliminary plan not matching the final design, so that's in good order now. Originally, this was just submitted as Section 1, Phase 2. The last section, when it was approved, was this Section 1, so they've changed this to Section 2. That's been taken care of. Really, all of our comments have been addressed. We noticed we didn't have a copy of CUD's will serve letter for our file. I did receive an email from the design engineer on this that they do have it. They just need to email it to us, and we know it exists. It's just we wanted a copy for our file. So besides that, this plat's in good order. We recommend approval. Mike, do you have anything?
Questions for staff? Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve 17-2071 Hall Farm subdivision final plat, Section 1, Phase 2. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Is there any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6C2, 17-2072, Alameda subdivision, 62 residential lots, 2 detention lots, and 1 step lot on 40.34 acres, zoned RM, located off Manchester Highway. JJ and F Partnership is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. The preliminary plan for this development was most recently approved by the Planning Commission back in September of 2016. This final plat is consistent with the preliminary plan approval. We have identified a number of comments. Those comments have been addressed. Most of them are really just housekeeping in nature. Something to just to remind the Planning Commission about, in the back of the subdivision, you'll probably recall this when we looked at the preliminary plan originally, there's an existing septic easement for the adjacent tract to the north, and that's made a part of Lot 48. That was part of the preliminary plan and will also be a part of this final plat as well. The waiver was granted for it, but that waiver will be reflected as well on this final plat. So I just wanted to make sure that that was noted. But again, all of our comments have been addressed, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, sir. 2 ponds, one in the front, one in the back, meet all our standards. Yes, sir.
The waiver request, you mean, or the easement? Yes, the waiver was granted. The easement was already in existence. It wasn't before this even came to us.
Will it be a flag lot or anything to it?
No, it's just an easement on the property, so it's not a separate lot.
Well, it's got a narrow building envelope, and we required that they have a
Right.
licensed surveyor to stake out the house.
Right, yeah, there's like 3 or 4 different lots in that subdivision we felt needed to have that. This was one of them.
Doug, do we know if Note 20's been taken care of yet? Have they addressed that with that pond yet?
20, let's see.
Get back on that side.
Oh, that's saying we need a geotechnical report. Existing pond on Lot 47 to be drained, demucked, and filled with suitable material under the direction of a licensed geotechnical engineer, with the results of the testing be provided to the Rutherford County Building Codes. So make sure it's a buildable lot. It was an old farm pond. Then make sure it's excavated out and rebuilt under our geotechnical standards to make sure no problems in the future.
That'll happen when they get to that lot. It doesn't need to be done now, or has it already been done? Okay.
Well, there's some improvements in the area, drainage improvements, but just the wholesale excavation of the old farm pond, just mucking it out and refilling it with shot rock, suitable building material.
Doug or Mike, on these lots that have further requirements as far as surveying to be done and geotechnical reports, should those lots be noted with an asterisk so the person that looks at this plat knows that there's something unusual about that particular lot without, or maybe they're just not aware that they should read the fine print in the corner?
Yes, sir. Gail has a stamp about this size that she stamps on the plat and says this has a special feature, needs to be addressed, either be a critical lot, FEMA requirements. She's got several stamps, and that's what we look at before we release the lots to building and codes, to make sure that they're aware of that and it's outlined, highlighted, and
I guess my concern is this plat, if this is a copy of the final plat and that is shown to a prospective lot purchaser, Mr. and Mrs. homeowner, that at least to me an asterisk or some kind of note on that plat indicates that, hey, maybe I need to look for something more.
Right.
It sounds like to me that stamp doesn't go on until after the final plat is
right.
released.
But each lot has a particular note. Say Lot 46 has a lot note 21, which says the proposed houses on Lot 41, 46, 48, 58, and should be laid out with a surveyor. So each one that has a special feature, some of them that have minimum pad are listed on the lot, but if there's a particular feature.
I see what you're talking about. I know you mentioned Lot 48, though, was one that we're going to require a surveyor, and I don't see a particular note on that.
Correct. That should say C note 21 on there as well.
Yeah, I think that, yeah.
It does in the easement, C notes 21 and 22.
I think what happened on that, they changed the note, they just didn't put a label on the lot, so that we'll make sure that gets taken care of.
We've had this discussion before, but does it follow the plat to when a building permit is issued, or does it follow the deed also? You know.
You talking about the septic system, the off-site septic system?
Well, either one, or having a lot surveyed, registered survey, or lay it out. Any note like that, does it follow the deed, or does it just follow the subdivision plat?
Typically with deeds that are done on subdivision plats like this, a lot of the times it'll say the property is referenced as lot 12 of this subdivision as recorded by plat and plat book, blah, blah, page, blah, blah, in which case it references this recorded plat. So it may not explicitly be mentioned on the deed, but it is on the plat, so I guess it's kind of by reference only in the deed a lot of the time.
My thought was the lot that has the off-site soil waiver on it, 20 years from now, somebody wants to build a accessory structure or a two-car garage back there, will it still show up?
It should if it references, yeah. Something like, I agree. Something like that is, now, of course, we don't look at the deeds, but something like this, if it were prepared, especially talking about that, there should be a note on there saying, because that easement was in existence before this even came through, so there should be a reference on Lot 48's deed that says, subject also to a off-site soils easement deed book page. It should do that.
We're going to assume they're going to get a building permit for that accessory structure, correct?
Yes. And just as a follow-up to what Mike was saying, he's not joking about the size of Gail's stamp. It really is about that big. It's huge.
Mr. Chairman, whenever I look at these plats, I always look at the names of the street. And I noticed when I looked at the very last street in this subdivision right here, how much I resemble that street. It's Retired Court. And I do commend the drafters of this plan, how they've worked on this.
Any other silly questions? David. Need a second? Pettis? We have a motion and a second to approve item 17-2072, Alameda Subdivision. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Is there any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. Item 6C3, 17-2073, Madison Cove Subdivision. 58 lots, 56 are buildable on 48.45 acres zoned RM, located off Leanna Central Valley Road. Matthew Bartlett is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Again, this is the second of the final plats that had the preliminary that we brought up under the suspension of the rules under preliminary plans. Prior to today's approval, the preliminary for this was approved at the May 23rd, 2016 meeting. There was no section number on this plat when it was originally submitted. We know that there will be additional sections. They have remedied that. There were also several other comments that we had on here. There's just a couple of really minor outstanding things that we had. One of them goes back to the kind of the discussion we were just having regarding notes on the plat and those lots being flagged as such. If you zoom in to, Mike, if you could number lot 1 there, right at the intersection. Yeah. Let me just bring it up so I can show you what we're talking about here. That particular lot, there is a note in the note section there regarding only having access to Courtney Lane. We just didn't want to see another driveway access onto Leanna Central Valley Road. The note is there, it just needs to be added to the plat, so that's something that's easily taken care of. The other thing, there's a note on here that appears to be superfluous. It's note 10. Mike and I were looking at this, and we think that's just a note that doesn't need to be on there. So that note just needs to be removed. Regarding the rest of the comments that we had, this plat appears to be in good order except for those couple minor issues. With that, we'd recommend approval.
There's not a lot 102, 103.
Yeah, not on this section.
Not on this section. There's an old farm pond with another demucking that we have to do.
We have a motion and a second to approve 17-2073 Madison Cove Subdivision. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6C4 has been withdrawn. 6C5, 17-2076 South Haven Subdivision, Section 3, 34 lots on 9.18 acres, zoned PUD, located off Batbuyer Road, north of Ocala Road. South Haven Development Group, LLC, is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. The preliminary plan for this development was approved by the Planning Commission during their September 28, 2015 meeting. This final plat does appear to be consistent with that preliminary plan approval and also the PUD pattern book that was approved for this subdivision. We did identify a number of comments on this, but again, they're mostly housekeeping in nature. Those comments have been addressed. This plat does appear to be in good order, and we'd recommend approval. Okay.
Doug, you got a note on there about the detention area for this, combined with lots 575.
Oh, yeah, what they ended up doing on that, you can see at the end of, I can't read the road, Proprietor Place, I think, they've got an access easement to the property for now. They realize that they're going to have to do that, and in a future section, they'll combine it with 575. That way, it'll have right-of-way access. But for now, what they're doing, they cleared this with us first before they did this. But actually, where they're showing that easement is actually where there's going to be a road right there. So when they get to that point, they'll be able to do a re-subdivision plat to combine that at one lot. So we'll be fine.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve and a second, 17-2076 South Haven Subdivision, Section 3. Any other questions? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Is there any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6C6, item 17-2077 South Haven Subdivision, Section 4, 19 lots on 4.64 acres, zoned PUD, located off Cotillion Drive, north of Ocala Road. South Haven Development Group, LLC, is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Most of the comments, quite frankly, regarding South Haven subdivision, as far as when the preliminary was approved, are similar for this as they were the last file. Again, this final plat also appears to be consistent with that preliminary plan approval and the PUD pattern book. There were several comments on here. Again, they've addressed those comments, and this plat's in good order, so we recommend approval.
Thank you, Craig. Have a motion and a second to approve 17-2077 South Haven Subdivision, Section 4. Any other questions? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Any opposition? The motion to approve carries. Thank you. Item 6D, submitted for site plan approval, 6D1 17-3032 Purple Tree Farm, new construction of a wood barn, 160 square feet, along with a conversion of existing carports measuring 1,296 square feet for the establishment of a retail nursery and produce sales on 2.62 acres, zoned CS, located along Shelbyville Highway. Stephen Grace is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This item was removed from the September 25th meeting due to a number of unaddressed staff comments, so it's being brought up today. Property was zoned to commercial services by the Board of Commissioners back in June of this year. Again, this came as a result of zoning enforcement action. We have identified a number of issues. For the most part, most of these issues have been addressed. The biggest outstanding issue that we have on here really deals with the location of these access easements. There are easements that are recorded, and there are drives which don't necessarily match the easements. Really what we'd like to see is just some sort of a document or something that puts this all to bed, in a sense, make sure that everybody's on the same page as far as where the easements are, where the drives are, and everything, so that we're not running into a situation where, someone's blocking access to somebody else just because the easement and the drive's not where it's supposed to be. Beyond that, there were a couple of just housekeeping items that need to be addressed, tying the structures to the property lines for one, revising the parking calculations. They base it on on retail sales, but the wrong portion of that. It shouldn't affect the site any, just a matter of correcting those. Again, they're relatively straightforward comments. The big thing is just making sure that other gets addressed, which we think can happen, probably before any building permits are issued, just a matter of, making sure the deeds are in order with what's actually out on the ground. So with that, Mike, do you have any other comments? With that, we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Doug, the problem here is we got two easements, one on the north and one on the south. Is that correct?
Right. Now, originally what they were going to do, they were going to have, they were going to actually utilize two access points for this plan. They took one out, so they're only going to have just the one access at the northern part of the site, which we preferred. But you are correct. There is a northern easement and then there is a southern easement, but the drives, the gravel drives, don't match that. So that's something we just want to make sure gets taken care of.
Okay, if you take the one out on the south, how does that affect that property owner back there?
Well, the driveway, the gravel drive, that's not being taken out. It's just the business is not going to access a new drive, a second drive,
Okay,
I guess is
the
what I was trying to
business is not, but the people,
The people should still be
they
able
can
to.
still,
Right.
it'll be a private, it won't be, for any customers won't be coming in that way.
Correct. There's not going to be any, for that southern drive, there won't be any access to the parking area. It's just going to be for the private use of those people in the back.
Okay,
That's right.
anything we're doing here today will not hinder anybody in the back.
That's what we want to make sure the easements get drawn up in such a way that they reflect what's on the ground. We just,
So if it
that's why
leaves-
we were asking that.
So if it
Right.
leaves here today, we need a clear understanding from the property owners that the people in the back will not be affected in any way.
Correct. That's what we're trying to accomplish by having them change
Okay.
where those easements are. That's correct.
Okay.
On the north side?
Removed? One area?
In the middle. Yeah, there
They're
was, yeah, can you show them on the site plan where those going to be? Yeah.
This one's going to be taken out. And then this will be the commercial entrance here, but people can still continue to go down this northern driveway.
Doug, is that road and the lot going to remain gravel?
They'll have to pave in the actual parking area itself and that portion of the drive that they'll be using. You can kind of see they've got it labeled or hatched, if you will. It's kind of like a dotted pattern. You might not be able to see it on the screen, but you might be able to see it on the iPad a little better when you zoom in there. They're actually going to pave a portion of it, to make it consistent with the state requirements. But that asphalt, all the parking in there will have to be brought up to current county code, which is paving.
Okay, again, Doug, tell us how we're going to solve this problem, that we're going to leave here with a clear understanding.
Right, well, they're going to have to, before they get building permits, they'll have to get a zoning compliance form from our office. So what we're going to say is, okay, before you do that, we need to make sure that this is all consistent, that these drives and these access, everybody's going to have proper access, and that these easements are drawn up properly. And recorded. So, which should be, I would think, a relatively easy thing for the property owner to do.
I'm sure you've had a little feedback from those people in the back, haven't you?
Really, during the public hearing process, that was really where we heard from it the most,
yeah,
yes, sir.
yeah.
Not recently with the site plan, but yes, they have made
A
their...
couple months ago or
Right.
something when we talked about that.
Right.
3 months or something, yeah.
That's correct.
Is there any issue with maintaining that gravel drive?
As far as...
Who maintains it now, and will there be any issue in that continuing, or?
Well, that'll just be between the property owners as far as all that goes. I mean, like it is today. Well, that's why we want to make sure all the easement paperwork is consistent. We don't want to be in a situation where they say, well, you know what, your easement's actually down here, you're not allowed to use this drive anymore, even though that's the drive they've been using for years. So, I mean, at this point, they all have access to it, but we don't want to ever be in a position where somebody can't have access.
Doug, I know this is really kind of splitting hairs, but I want to make sure that, I guess my concern is he's not going to add any buildings to this, right?
Well, no, if he did, he would.
Trying to get into zoning
Right,
compliance.
but
So
what he's showing on the site plan is what he's going to do. If he wants to add additional buildings, he'll have to amend the site plan.
So
Yeah, there is a little wood barn on there that you can see. It's kind of got a diagonal hatch on it, 10 by 16 wood barn. That's not there now. They do want to add that.
Okay,
But the
so-
carports, yeah.
I guess my concern is if he doesn't add that wood barn, does he need a building permit? Because you mentioned that in order to get a building permit, he's got to.
I don't think you ever permitted the existing
Lots.
carports. I don't think the carports were ever permitted. That's why we ended up making him go through the zoning process in the first place. So he'll still have to come and get proper permits for the carports that are there.
For the existing
Correct,
structure, he
right,
needs
because
a
he just
building
put them, they
permit
just
for
went up.
those.
Yeah, they never, if they'd have come in and said, hey, we want to put these carports up to have sales, we could have caught this on the front end, and then he still would have gone through the zoning process, but we could have avoided a lot of the, having to go back and do it that way. So permits have not been issued for those.
So he can't get a certificate of occupancy. He can't open this business without completing any
Correct.
requirements that, if we were to approve this subject to staff comments, he can't take his approval and, I mean, there is.
That's correct. I mean, now, I can't promise that he won't try to do that, but, it's like with anything, and we tell applicants, just because you have a zoning approval or a site plan approval, that doesn't mean you can go out there the next day or the day of and say, oh, good, I got my approval, I can go ahead and open up. There's a process involved. So even if he tries to do that, we'll have to say, basically, time out, you've got to come back and still address these other concerns that we've got.
Doug, if you look at where the easement is and on that, if that owner says, hey, I don't want that gravel road where it's at today, the easement's gonna go across that driveway of that other house, the way it's laid out, unless they can come up with an agreement on the south side.
Right.
If he says, no, I don't want that gravel road there, then the easement's a little further south, right in that, those people's driveway there.
That's what we're trying to address is, we need to fix this now because it got skipped over in the past.
Doug, stay with me on this in case I misstate anything, but I'll make a motion to approve, subject to all staff comments, complete compliance with county codes, but also that there would be a permanent easement attached to all the existing gravel driveways.
That's essentially what we're asking for.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve and a second, subject to all staff comments. Any other questions? Mike?
Well, Mike, are you okay with the drainage situation? Because since he's got an inventory display noted here, which means he's going to have a lot of trees or shrubs which are going to need constant water, which means there's going to be a lot of runoff potential. And it looks like everything is going to drain to the north, which may be hampered by an artificial dam, which is the gravel road, which I don't see a culvert cut there, which to me may push that water to the west towards the Dixon property, which also may be be a part of an artificial dam by the road. So is the water going to just pool in that northwest corner?
He's got it sheet flowing. This is all just gravel here, and he's got it so it'll flow over that and then cross this culvert for the new commercial entrance. There is a culvert here, and he's got the proposed contours sheet flowing over the top of this.
Okay. So no neighbors to the west or to the south are going to be harmed by any overwatering of?
No, sir. He's keeping these trees right here, so that'll keep a big vegetative buffer as well. He's keeping most of the trees around here. Let me see if I can find that.
just want to make one comment. He has a business, or he had a business over in Bedford County. He did a good job, had a nice business over, and he does a good job. He really does. And I just want to reiterate one more time, proof positive about these easements, and we'll get those correct.
That's what we want to see as well.
I know it's a lot of different people involved out there.
We have a motion and a second to approve 17-3032 Purple Tree Farm. Other questions? Ready to vote? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. Opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6D2 has been withdrawn. 6D3, 17-3035, AJ's Tree Service, new construction of, 4,600 square feet shop and covered parking area on 1.11 acres on CS located along Flat Rock Road. Matthew and Lavana Bratton are the applicants. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This property was formerly a plumbing business and was purchased by the applicant. You'll recall this went through the zoning process earlier this year as well. They purchased this and zoned a portion of that small triangle portion there to commercial services along with the existing office building, which was already zoned that. They know that a final plat will need to be recorded combining these properties before any certificate of occupancy will be granted for that. We have identified a number of issues on this plat, or plan, excuse me. I'll turn it over to Mike here in just a moment for the more, the ones that require a little more discussion. Some of the ones that are on here, it's just a matter of locating where the water line, existing water line is located, those type of things, some smaller issues. But Mike's going to discuss some of the drainage issues that we identified with this property, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mike on this.
Okay. They're taking out a building, adding a couple buildings, and adding some pavement here. It's less, the impervious area that they're adding is less than would kick in our water quality requirements, but we still evaluate every time quantity, how much water is leaving the site. And we need them to address downstream structures, and also how are they going to handle the additional runoff with the pavement and here. This property, hence, the name Flat Rock, is mostly rock anyway, so it's not going to be that big of an increase. I think it's mostly all gladeville soil. I'm surprised anybody can find a septic system out here, but I'll let SEC address how they're going to address the additional runoff and the downstream evaluations.
I guess I'll face this way to try to get everybody in view. I'm John Miner with SEC, 850 Middle Tennessee Boulevard in Murfreesboro.
So essentially what they're doing is they're keeping this existing building, existing parking. I think this one's being removed. Yeah, this building's being removed. There's a building here that's being removed. They're adding a shop and a covered parking area and then some pavement. So essentially, it's not that much of, it's not that much of runoff, additional runoff, but we just need some, how are we going to handle the additional runoff?
For
yes,
it.
Yes, we need some calculations. What the existing ground is mostly gladeville rock. I can turn on the soil layer and let you see it. And Talbot. So this is gladeville rock all around it, Talbot in the middle. So it's very rocky soil. But just need some ideas from y'all how are we going to address.
Yes, it is very rocky in that whole area. In the front, in the two entrances, we have two separate culverts. Basically, what I planned on doing was creating two infiltration trenches. There we go. Because it really isn't much of an increase. It's only about 1 CFS of an increase.
It's essentially building a house and a driveway on a lot. But because it is a commercial entrance, we got to scrutinize it a little bit more and make sure that they're addressing all our issues and concerns. And they do own this property all around it, so they've got plenty of room to do stuff if they need to. Kind of drains to the northwest. It'll cross the driveway culvert here, and I think there's a culvert somewhere in here where it crosses that we need to have them look at as well.
Will it require a pond or a
Well, that's
retention pond?
one, we've got a lot of tools in our toolbox. We just need them to pick one and tell us how it's going to work. They've got plenty of room. I'm not real concerned. It's just the soil's, kind of rocky, so there's not going to be that much, you could see the exposed rock everywhere, all around.
Tell us
Need some kind of idea how we're going to address this.
about the infiltration trench and where you propose it might be located and how that would function.
It's going to be along the frontage of Flat Rock Road, basically where where our ditches and where the next ditch is, basically between the two, 3 segments of pipe. What we're probably going to have to do is undercut, fill with actual drainable soil, and allow it to basically infiltrate down at a slow rate.
It's kind of like we do for the houses on infill lots. We ask that they do some kind of rain garden or something to offset the additional runoff. So that's, we're going to have to get creative on this one because it's so rocky.
It's going to end up kind of functioning similar to a normal detention pond.
So that stormwater that you capture there will not go across the roadway to that?
Correct.
Okay.
It would have to stop and on our property before discharging through the pipe.
That was another question. That'll be maintained on the owner's property, so there's no maintenance issue for the county to have to.
I feel comfortable. There's plenty of room. There's options that we can do. So I won't give them a notice to proceed until they've addressed that. So I feel comfortable working with John. He's a pretty good engineer.
EIT.
EIT. Well, he's in training. He's
1 more year. Thank you.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve, subject to the staff comments, especially regarding the drainage and infiltration issues.
We have a motion and a second to approve 17-3035 for AJ's Tree Service. Other questions? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. Opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6D4 has been withdrawn. This is our last day meeting of 2017. We have 2 more meetings scheduled, and our next one is November the 13th, which will be a Monday evening meeting, and December the 11th, which will also be a Monday evening meeting. Doug, any reports or?
I have nothing further. Mike, did you have anything? I think we're good.
Anyone have anything? I think we're preliminary putting together a holiday meal for before our December 11th meeting, okay? So mark that on your calendar. if we can get Gail to cook us a ham and like to cook us a pecan pie, we'll be in business. Anything else, you guys? Thank you for your participation and attendance. We are adjourned.